and welcome back to Run the Terra. This is episode 20. I am Grandmaster Dan,
I'm Adam Edelman Munoz.
I'm Stan Jarzewski.
and today we'll be talking about the season of fortune, or should I say the season
of torture.
That's just a little fun thing we like to do on the podcast. Is using the Saw voice.
Can you guys tell Dan still hasn't figured out his soundboard yet?
Yeah, I really need to get that together.
He has that one voice down.
Yeah, I've got one voice down. I need to start putting some saxophone riffs on here.
For sure.
Really elevate this to a sort of a god tier level podcast. But for now, we'll be in the pleb tier talking about Season of Fortune, which is this news we got from Runeterra. Kind of just wanted to say that that's what it was to kind of make that terrible joke. But basically just how seasons are going to work and kind of what's coming up in the future. So we'll be talking about a lot of it today. We'll also be getting into the plunder mechanic and all of the drama that's been brewing around it. But for now, Sam, why don't you do the meta pulse for us, dude? Let's take that heartbeat.
Yeah. So, we're still in about the same state we were last week. It seems like things are kind of calming down. Aggro's still most of the top, your Kinko elusives and your burn aggro. Looking through, like, Swim's listings, I find it interesting that he put Tempo and Dur at the very tippy top. I feel like more than ever, this is Swim just really liking Tempo and Dur. I do like that the deck is giving a Haunted Relic a place. Props to Adam for very much calling that, like, hey, Callista Haunted Relic is, 2 cards that just say level up your Callista.
I would love to take more credit for that than I deserve, so I will. I deserve all the credit for that, everything. It's all me.
Yes!
In all fairness, though, it's mostly that I just have played Haunted Relic in bad decks so many times that I know exactly what it does, and one of the things it does is flip a Callista.
It makes 3 spirits. He read the card, guys, and it sounds like the rest of the pros didn't. So check one for Adam.
Yeah. I mean, that does seem to be, one of the most difficult things in this game, is it's got a pretty high reading level.
Yeah.
But,
ethereal? What does that even mean? Or ephemeral?
Right?
See, I can't even...
Yeah, it's so difficult in this game.
Thank you, Dan, for proving your point.
See? A Fooby Woo. All right. Yeah, so what else is going on in the meta? Anything?
Yeah.
Any big shakeups?
Not really. There's some, like, very mild changes to some stuff. Someone put a Lucian in an aggro deck, and it did pretty decently. Vlad and Sejuani work pretty well together, but they're still pretty much just, like, a tweak of the same style of deck. Well, actually... No, it looks like the all-in damage Sejuani deck is starting to see some play. I haven't really seen this one come up, but I guess they finally hit what they needed. Between things like Ember Maiden to make your chonky Crimson Curators make more Crimson Curators. Imperial Demolitionist works really well with this package. Yeah, I guess they just needed a really good card to hold everything together in Sejuani, since Vlad or, like, Braum definitely wasn't doing the trick.
Right.
But interesting, yeah. It's a deck that's actually seeing some solid competitive play. So those are only real big shakeups, is, Lucian's getting some love, and Vlad's getting some love. So we've almost got all the champs back into some form of rotation for viable decks.
R.I.P. Braum, though, right?
Yeah, I don't think Brahm's a real boy yet. Brahm,
Someday they'll make an aggro deck that doesn't rely on just ignoring your opponent's board, and then Braum will be good.
Or they'll just, like, give a thing that says, like, Braum can block anything.
Braum can block anything.
Yeah, angels, demons.
I think what bothers me about Braum is that his picture is him absolutely fisticuffing somebody in the face, and yet he's an 05? You're going to tell me that's cool? No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Flavor loss.
So, I think Braum just in general needs some reworking. Because I still, like, I don't even see him as an aggro card. Like, what? Maybe make some better placing just mid-range for him. Like, I can't see him doing anything else well.
Would he be better with, like, 1 point of power?
I mean,
still wouldn't be
just
playable.
Objectively, yes, he would be.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, clearly. But like, would he get up to playable if he could like actually snipe off 1 health units?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think he would be. Maybe this is a problem that the game designers are running into. That seems like that's almost busted in half.
I mean, I'm not sure.
We would have to balance it down with something else. But yeah, I mean, I think that would be right, because like there's so many elusive things you could start taking out, like the Green Glade duo.
Oh yeah, 'cause he does have the Challenger. I mean, but like, if he was good enough, he's already in, decks running Omen Hawk and other buff spells. So like, if he wasn't good enough I mean, I guess since it has to be a dedicated buff deck, like, is just the reliability of him guaranteed having that 1 power gonna be enough to push him where he needs to be? Because commonly he has more than 1 power and he's still not doing enough.
Y'all, this is now a Break Brom or a Buff Brom podcast. We will now be spending the rest of our time and our existence on this ill-fated Earth to Buff Bomb. Wow, Buff Bomb.
I mean,
you cannot
Buff
say
Bomb.
Buff Brom easily. It's kind of
tough.
a tongue twister.
I mean, and he already is pretty
Is that our
buff.
friendship has ended with Yasuo and we're Brom boys now?
Yes, exactly. That's actually I'm writing that down. That is a thumbnail.
Yeah. It's sort of like, Yasuo got his time to shine. He made it as far as he could. He's grown up. Now it's Brom's turn. We're trying to root for the underdogs here.
Exactly. So,
But
yeah, I mean, it seems like the meta's at a pretty solid spot. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of great tier 2 decks here with this pick run, and a healthy amount of S decks that are very good.
I know.
So when the meta's healthy, that usually is a sign that rather than nerfs, we're looking for buffs to kind of bring stuff into viability.
That's a great
Other than
point.
obviously
Viability.
Brom, who do we want to see buffed?
Let's just throw a little chaos into the mix. Let's just rebuff all those burn things that they nerfed. let's just throw it back. Just throw it back.
Dan
a
with
couple
the
months.
let's just go back to the last meta. Okay.
Yeah, why
I
not?
can appreciate that opinion. What about you, Stan?
Maybe it'll be different this time.
I mean, who else needs help? I guess like
You could give it to anyone, Stan.
I can give help to anyone.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You could give Cythria like 5 power for a 1-drop, dude. You could do anything.
Oh dude. Oh anything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Then
I
we're
mean, Cythria
definitely
already
making.
has 6 powers, Dan.
Yeah, but
That's a
for like
different
7
Cythria.
mana or something? Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Or wait, is she
No.
666?
Yeah.
Yes, she is.
Ooh.
The bold
okay.
Cythria is the devil.
New demon confirmed.
But I mean, we should definitely give original Cythria 6/6 as well.
Yeah.
But just 1/6/6, and then
Yeah, because I'm not.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, yeah,
I think who do I think needs a buff? I mean, champion wise, I don't know.
yeah, everyone's kind of doing what they need to do except for Braum, and I mean, I don't know. Lucian is. I don't think Lucian in any way needs buffs. He just needs a shell that works with him. Yeah. And I mean, like, the fact that Tempo Endure exists, and it's not the type of deck that wants to be, like, that's the best thing to be doing with that type of package, because that's the deck that would be running Lucian, would be the Tempo Endure deck just without the Freljord package, which would just be so much worse. Like, I don't think Demacia makes that deck better. It's just, you'd be playing a worse Tempo Endure right now.
Do you have any recommendations for buffs?
Well, let's see. For starters, I think the Shadow Isles control pieces are lacking, suffering a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I'd appreciate just a nudge. Like, let's say Black Spirited 2 and Raza to 7.
We are now a
Okay.
Buff Brom and Black Spirited 2 podcast. That is all
We've always been a Black Spirited 2 podcast.
Yeah. that is the type
even
of
when it
podcast
was
we are.
two.
we thought it was perfect at 2.
Yeah, we were talking about how great it was. Actually, I would love to see the Mage Seeker chunk of cards kind of do.
Oh my
something
god.
cool.
Those are cards.
Yeah, because like, I
Holy
don't ever
crap.
see them, and I really like the concept.
Yep.
But honestly, after they I guess it's not really a nerf for the Mage Seeker Insider, the one that now gives itself +2/+2 once you cast a 6+ cost spell.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just again, it was a much more fun card prior to that. Like I said, you could discard a War Mother's Call to it to make it a big chunky.
God.
So
Yeah,
I've seen a bit of that deck just running around in casual. The thing I've noticed is that deck desperately wants 3 more copies of Remembrance.
Yeah, that's fair.
What else are they running with? What other region?
But frick, the one I saw I think was Ionia, but for Karma and stuff. But you can the second region matters less. It really is all about the just how many Mage Seekers and Remembrances you draw.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that you can just run it with PNZ and then you have 3 more Remembrances.
Yeah, but a vanilla 5/5 is worse than literally all of the possible rolls for Remembrance.
Yeah.
Sure, but like that's the closest you're gonna get right now to having 3 more Remembrances.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a brood birthing, right? You could go Shadow Isles. Or not brood birthing, what is that called?
Brood Awakening?
Brood Awakening.
Do you really want to go super wide in that deck? I feel like that deck is more about. Okay, let's not thought cast this crappy tier 4 deck. All I'm saying is...
Speaking of crappy tier 4 deck, we still haven't done that Mind Meld stream.
It's too good.
God.
It's too good.
All right, you know what?
Good.
Here it is. Riot, please buff Mind Meld that stuff so that we actually have incentive to get off of our buns and do that stream. How about that?
Yeah.
We saw it.
That seems good.
All right, so now we can get into the thrust or epi. We got some breaking news. It's great stuff. I'm gonna let Adam take over because I barely read this. I just saw the Seasons of Fortune joke that I could make, and it was like, yep, there we go, found knife again.
All right, so if you watched the What's Next for Runeterra video, which we went over, what was it, last week before that? You've already heard most of this news. So this is just new concrete dates, which is useful. So we have the month by month breakdown of new cards and releases. So new expansion coming August, and then every 2 months after that, new cards, and then yet another new region in February, and every 6 months after that, new region. That's the cadence we're looking at. But more importantly, we've got some ideas for what's coming up in just the next couple of weeks. So starting next week, we will have gauntlets. For those of you that don't remember, gauntlets are a kind of 7-win constructed challenge. It will usually be fairly close to the primary game rules, though maybe with some small variation. Like single region or 3, or you have to have 3 champions or something like that. But fairly close to the basic game rules, and if you get 7 wins, there will be glorious prizes. Not that they've told us what those are.
Probably. I mean, if they're called gauntlets, I'm assuming the prizes are going to be stones that you put in the gauntlets.
Oh, yeah, so you're kind of going for an Avengers thing?
Yeah, definitely.
I was thinking it was going to be literal gauntlets that they ship to your house.
That too. I mean, like that's what I was really hoping for. And then, well, they have to send you the gauntlets so they can send you the,
Hey, Adam, what do you think the prize is going to be?
I honestly don't know, because given that they are not giving out champion cards for 7 wins and expeditions, I'm guessing they won't do it for gauntlets either.
Shots fired.
No, I mean, yes, that's me firing shots, but also, like, I think that's a good assessment, right? Like, they don't want the best way to get cards to be being great at the game. I mean, that's the philosophy they've kind of showed us there. So instead, I think that it'll be something cosmetic, and we know at the very minimum you'll get an icon, because that's what they told us. Getting 7 wins in a gauntlet will get you some sort of icon.
Okay.
And then,
cool.
Additionally, who knows what else you'll get? I'm guessing a ton of shards. I'm guessing, I don't know, maybe other cosmetics as we get later, like boards or card backs or something like that.
Yeah. Emote sleeves.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things they could put in the gauntlets.
Guys, let's put on our Riot marketing and design caps for a second here and try to think of an exciting new thing they could add cosmetic-wise that would really spice up these gauntlets.
Hats.
Hats. For who? For me?
They get no a hat's for your sleeve, so it's a hat that goes on top of your sleeve, and it says Riot Gaming and Market Development. They give us these hats that you're speaking of, Dan.
Okay, I'm going to one up you. Hats for your cards. So when they're in your hand and your opponent's looking at them, they have the little hat on, and you can have it whether you can have it like brim out or brim back, so you're kind of cool with it.
Oh, nice.
Or if you play the card and it's like on the board, the hat merges onto the card like the entity in focus, like the creature in focus, and then they're wearing it. So they're gonna have to redo all the art on all the cards for this, for every single hat. I think this is a really lightweight way they can really add a lot of cosmetic
That's really
value
important.
to the game.
That's impressive, but I think that there's a real problem with all these cosmetics. They're just too small. We've seen card backs, and card backs take up the entire card, but only when they're in your deck or hand. We need to one up that with card fronts. You just they go over your cards to show your opponent just how badass you are. Now it's up to your opponent to figure out what the cards are, but that's up to them. Like that's their problem.
Well,
what about card
cubes?
The
card will resolve.
What about card cubes? Every card becomes a 6-dimensional entity. You can play them down as fast as possible, and your opponent has to flip them over and find the right side. And sometimes the sides are misleading, and they think it's a different card. Have we just made a new game?
Yeah,
Guys.
I think what you do is you roll your cards onto the board, and whichever side comes up, that's the card you have.
Okay, wait, we cannot release. We can't put this podcast out anymore. This is too good. This is $1 million idea.
All right, so resuming where we just had a discussion, and we just finished talking about what we think about gauntlets, and we're not going to talk about prizes at all.
Yo, gauntlets
Moving
are
on
pretty dope.
instead.
Yeah, exactly. Very subtle transition. Very cool.
Yeah.
The one little piece of information they did give us about gauntlets, other than that they're starting next week, is they gave us the formats for the first 2 gauntlets. The first gauntlet is going to be standard format. This is basically a test run, like make sure gauntlets work. And that starts next weekend, next Friday, June 26th. And then the following week, that would be starting July 3rd, we will have a singleton gauntlet. No more than one of each card.
Okay, that's good. I got a good one for their third one, Strip Gauntlet. You have to play the game with the webcam, and every time you lose, you take off a piece of clothing. Every time you lose a point of life. Every time you tap into your spell mana.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh.
I was about to say, Karma Ezreal just running around in the nude, and then you've got
you're just instant
Burn Aggro just wearing their parka.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, like if you didn't want to get naked, you wouldn't play that deck. That's
exactly.
easy peasy.
Only hotties are allowed to play as Karm.
That makes sense. Well, see, when you said that though at first too, I thought,
let me not play my deck, Dan.
No, I think that we can make this a little more family friendly for all those not 18-year-olds playing the game, and we can just do Strip Gauntlet though, where it's just you take off your gauntlet. Because Riot's going to issue everybody a gauntlet, and just,
Yeah, make sure that you guys have been playing gauntlets with your standard Runeterra brand designed gauntlet. Shipped to every Runeterra player this past month. Did you guys get your gauntlets yet?
God, come on. Yeah, that's going to make that one pretty difficult for anyone who doesn't receive their gauntlets in time. That's probably why they're going to do it, in a few months when they know everybody's got them. But, yeah, it's going to be a fun format. It's good that's coming out soon. I really can't wait to get my new glove. I hope they know what size it is. It'd be really awkward if they gave me one that was too small. But, man.
All right, so moving along, the next bit of news that we got from this Season of Fortune update is changes to Masters MMR. So this really matters more to you guys than it does to me, because, I fuck around at gold.
Well, it really matters to Stan, who's in Masters.
Yeah. The Grandmaster's meta, I think, has been good for a while.
I mean, Dan, this is more for the people chasing your heels. You gotta know who's coming up.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And then I just go in and with my Smurf account and drop them down a couple pegs. It's been useful, actually.
All right, so Masters MMR, the change, instead of just displaying your rank and just like numerically, if you were the 10th best guy in Masters, your rank was 10. If you were the 50,000th best guy in Masters, hey, you were ranked 50,000. So instead of that, to add some Riot TM clarity, we're going to have some Masters ranking is now dependent on LP. So just like in the other leagues, you'll gain or lose LP. But unlike the other leagues, your LP won't be capped, right? You won't like rank up when you hit a certain amount. You just keep gaining LP as you go up or losing as you go down.
Oh, I love that.
And just your rank in Masters will depend on your your current LP.
I love
Okay.
His LP levels, they're over 9,000.
Exactly.
That's great. That's something that we can do now.
Yes, like that, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, so and then at the end of the season, rankings will be determined by who has the most LP. Pretty straightforward.
Love it.
And your LP is what will be displayed in the client, which I guess is a good thing. I don't know. This is really more for you guys. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be grinding my LP up to 420.69 in the coming weeks.
Yeah, see, that's definitely the biggest problem is that like your cap is so low at 420.69.
Yeah, it's just 420.69. Yeah.
Like that's the cap. You can't go any further than that.
Stan, I guess there is the opportunity of going 420.69.024. Wait, that's not a palindrome. 1 second.
No,
Let me go back to the drafting board real quick. You guys keep talking. I'm going to write down some numbers until it's a palindrome. 1 second.
Yeah.
Has Dan realized that if you put 6 before 9 every time it shows up, he can't palindrome it?
Okay. Yeah, you could always get your LP up to 420.69.96.024. And that way you have a palindrome of 420.69.96.024 if you want that.
Yeah, but that's just so much LP. Like, is that even feasible? How do you do it?
I mean, the number of LPs per game, they said would range from 15 to 25 for a win or loss, like plus or minus 15 to 25. So,
hey, listen,
that's a bit ambitious, but I think you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be the best, you got to grind the game, dude. I mean, I'm thinking about putting it on my resume for future employers.
Oh.
Like that.
If I got that much LP, it's going on everything.
Auto hire.
I'm getting
getting
bumper stickers. I'm getting hats. I'm getting it tattooed on my face. Yeah, absolutely.
Sort of a barcode hashtag. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll get the barcode version of it on my face. I'll get it in binary on my face. Like, face is just going to be a stream of numbers.
The year is 2479. Everybody's known by their LP number because Riot somehow has taken over the world.
Yeah, and then
then you're all sad because I have all the LP.
Yeah, and then we end up with the Legends of Runeterra TV show, which is got to be the wildest idea ever. Because why wouldn't any of the other franchise stuff get?
I do actually like that concept, right? Because it's like, we have an amazing action game, we have a first-person shooter, but instead, let's take all of our great characters people love and have them play cards. Or be inside of cards, I guess, really.
Yeah.
No. Play cards while inside of cards. It's meta.
Ooh, there we go. We can get Dan Harmon to write it.
Yeah. Do you guys think that there'll eventually be a Valorant release set for Legends of Runeterra? Where they...
Okay. I think it's unlikely to cross over, but I wouldn't completely rule it out.
Okay, this is a great conversation point. Let's become a Valorant podcast now, because why in the world did Riot make an entirely different set of IP for characters and models and assets and worlds for their FPS when it would be so much cooler if they just I guess maybe because they needed them to do FPS based things and
I was about to say.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Lucian has guns. Misfortune has guns.
Yeah.
Ezreal has guns.
Yeah.
Thresh has a
for
hook.
A tactical shooter, you need some very different mechanics than you need for a MOBA.
Okay, I'm actually going back again and saying
use those mechanics.
Yeah, they should do the LoL thing or they should make the LoL players in the Valorant, because they could just do what every great fanfiction author does and just completely disregard their past 6 years of work to serve their own purposes.
Yep. And then they can have one of the characters go crazy and ride a dragon and take out a whole town. It'll be great.
Yeah.
It'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
I
I wasn't even referencing Thrones there, but that's actually absolutely.
I think that's the only way.
Anyways, getting back to whatever in the world we were talking about.
All right. So the next piece of information we got was that labs are coming in 1.5, so that'll be in mid-July.
Okay.
And that the first lab will be ARAM. For those of you who have played MOBAs before, hey, you'll recognize that. For those of you who haven't, though, which is what I should have said, ARAMing is when you take a bunch of random champions and you charge headfirst at each other in the middle lane and just fight and fight and fight.
Yep.
And so the ARAM lab, you get random champions. You get like a very limited choice from a random pool, and then your deck is randomly generated to fit with those champions.
I wish you guys could have seen my face right there, because it was sort of a roller coaster face where I was getting extremely excited until you actually explained what ARAM was. And then I got really unexcited because I thought that it meant I could finally play my 40-card Teemo. I just saw this picture that was just chock full of champions on the screen, and I was like, they finally listened to me. Somebody
if only all those cards were Teemo.
Yeah.
I think that... I don't think they explained ARAM properly there. I think what actually happens is you just get launched into a game of ARAM in the League client. You don't actually play ARAM on Runeterra at all.
Yeah, but you still have to play it with the cards, though.
Yeah, you're playing League in Runeterra, and you're playing in like a LOL qualifier match, and you're just like dropped in, and your other 4 teammates are like, "We need you to go down the bottom lane and save the championship for the MOBA," but that,
Is it basically
you're like,
just
play Ledros?
Yeah. So you get the cards, but you get they're basically just a skin for the player. So instead of the player having any animation, it's just a card that pivots on the screen and does the MOBA things now. That would be pretty great. I'm all about this mode. Give us this mode.
I do think there could be a crossover for a MOBA / DCG. Like that's definitely the again. I need to stop saying these ideas because all of our listeners are going to start taking them.
Once again, moving on from this discussion that we totally weren't having.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks, dude.
The last bit, we got some teasers for the in-game events, which are confirmed to be coming in patch 1.6 and 1.7, so it's going to last a month. We didn't get much else about that, except that you will be able to friend challenge across regions, which is nice. And in 1.7, so mark your calendars, that's going to be like a month and a half away, maybe a bit more, almost 2 months. We get to pick what card is the sleeve for our deck, or the
that's really
deck
useful.
image.
That's really, really useful.
And with that, Runeterra has opened another axis of a meta. Fantastic.
Yep. And I think another really important thing that's going to come from that too is that'll be another aesthetic they can give us, is we can get deck pictures that have nothing to do with our deck and just start getting little flowers and like mountaintops and stuff and just whatever. You just put whatever there.
If they would start displaying deck pictures like before the start of the game,
that'd be so good.
Oh my god! I mean, I would just take the weirdest pictures.
Yep, it'd be amazing. You could just upload a picture of yourself.
Yeah.
Just put that over your,
Yeah, I would just do me and really weird Snapchat filters from like 3 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just the amount of information your opponent has about your deck after that is really high, but it's worth it. They know exactly what they're dealing with.
Yeah, you get into this great meta of trying to scry what your opponent's playing based off the shape of their nose. Oh god, I'm getting into phrenology. Okay, I'm gonna get out. I'm backing out, hitting the eject button.
This week on Dan accidentally says something he didn't mean to be racist.
Yeah.
Whoops. Oh well.
Oh man.
That's wild. That. Oh my god. I don't agree with what I just... Yeah, okay. Anyways,
in all seriousness, Dan is not trying to be offensive in any way, shape, or form. He's just blundering around and saying dumb stuff, and occasionally what thing he says is incorrect.
You're giving away the game, Adam.
I just want to make sure that no one in our podcast is no one who listens to this, all 4 of you, has made any mistakes and misunderstanding what is being said here. We're not trying to be prejudicial in any way, shape, or form, and I think it's sometimes important to say that.
I think it's important to also let you know, Adam, that we don't actually have 4 listeners. My mom just opened 4 different tabs, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. So deck art. I mean, does that kind of round out this Winds of Fortune, Seasons of Fortune?
Yeah, that's the last of this announcement, which was mostly stuff we already knew, but had little bits and pieces I thought worth covering.
Absolutely. Let's get into the hot, spicy drama alert of
Crisis
the
alert.
This has been shaking up Runeterra by storm. Twitter has been on fire with trending hashtags such as Plunder terrible, hashtag Plunder bus, and it's taken itself by storm so much thanks to a famous Runeterra man known as Mega Mogwai, who has said quite eloquently, the yoink mechanic was a design mistake at Play Runeterra. We don't want to be Hearthstone. Hey, thanks. What do you guys think of this blistering and well thought out and well researched position? How do you guys?
Well, I think he said it. He said it all right there. We don't want to be Hearthstone, and that covers everything. That's a really powerful statement. Speaks volumes on its own, and is complete bullshit. I don't really think the yoink mechanic's that bad or egregious. It's very much in controllable randomness. Like, if you're getting into playing those cards, like, yes, there are times where you just steal the absolute nutters card off your opponent's deck, but in general, it is baseline just giving you card advantage, and it's giving you card advantage in a way that's like, okay, that was weird. Just giving you card advantage in a way that's, almost always about the same level of relevance. Like, just, you're going to get something to give you a little more value than your opponent. Like, again, sometimes it's going to be a blowout. That sucks, but that's still, like, well within the, just general, you can just blow somebody out playing a card game. Like, there's not... It's in no way, like... It doesn't seem to be hitting the spectrum where, like, games are bouncing around based purely off what you pilfer. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm trying to say.
Adam,
I'm going to mostly agree with you, Stan. Sorry, Dan, didn't mean to trample over
I was just going to ask what you said.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to mostly agree with you, Stan. I think that it's actually a fairly well-designed mechanic. In general, it's... it increases variability game to game without dramatically changing what the card's functionality is, which I think is a good thing, right? It's not just sometimes this card works, sometimes it doesn't. It's this card always gives you some amount of value, but it's a fairly centralized distribution of value, and you're gonna get some amount of stuff, and not usually the game won't usually swing on what you get. But what you get forces you to play differently game to game, right? If you steal a Glimpse Beyond, that's very different than if you steal a my brain has fallen out. What is the name? Demolicious, Imperial Demolicious.
Oh, yeah.
Right, how you play the game should change based on the cards you steal, which is, I think, a good thing, right? It creates more variability. It makes the game more dynamic. Those are good qualities. That said, the core, while the core principle works very well for these cards, I think that there is a slight failing to these cards, and that's their costing. I think that in a game that was more developed, right, in a game that had been out for longer and where the various regions were kind of well defined in what they did, and the various decks were well defined in what they did, this might be an okay cost for those cards. But as those cards exist now, nearly every deck has to play to the board. And that's a developmental choice, right? We've talked about how removal is costed, so you have to play to the board, because if you play to the board, you're likely generating a greater advantage than if you kill something on the board. for a similar cost. So because everyone has to play the board, decks end up looking somewhat more similar to each other. And obviously there are textures of difference, which make the game interesting. But fundamentally, the probability you get a bad piece or a piece that doesn't work with your game plan is fairly low.
Right.
Which means that the every time you're effectively drawing two. You're always drawing effectively two cards, or two things that you can use somewhat effectively. Which means that this should be costed like you're drawing two cards. Additionally, I've noticed the plunder mechanic is also slightly undercosted. Again, it's treated as though it's a challenge, which it might theoretically have been if it wasn't well supported, but the mechanic is fairly well supported, so it's actually not that hard to trigger it.
They did too good a job.
Yeah, Plunder is very easy to activate.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I mean, both Plunder and the kind of drawing from your opponent's deck mechanics are costed like they are kind of real downsides, and they're not that big of a downside. So the biggest offender is Pilfered Goods, which is still 2 mana burst speed, draw 2, and not really a significant downside. And we were talking about that a couple weeks back, right before they nerfed our good friend Deep Meditation. And so here we are again, 2 mana, burst speed, draw 2, no downside. It's probably just a bit too strong on the numbers.
I mean, another big problematic card, at least one that's been pointed out by, I guess also famous person, Navi Oot. I guess like Ocarina of Time. Interesting.
Navi Oot's a known player.
Okay, he's okay. Good. I now know him as well. He's very well known. Yeah. So there's also Black Market Merchant, which is the 2 mana 2/2. When you draw an enemy card, reduce cost by 1, and then Plunder, draw one from the enemy. To me, it seems like, and this makes sense, that Riot has valued drawing 1 from the enemy deck as worth less than drawing 1 from your own deck, and that seems to track, right? I mean, I think in general, like, because like we've already said, if you don't know exactly what you're drawing, then yeah, there's a little bit less of a value there. But at the same time, as we also just said, you kind of are drawing, for the most part, something that you not necessarily need, but something that you can absolutely use with your game plan. So it's kind of the idea that drawing 1 from the enemy deck is somehow, worth less than drawing 1 from your own deck is kind of, I think, not necessarily that well, except in like the most
it's good in theory, but has not borne out in practice.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And I think a good comparison for that guy is Avros and Hearthguard, right? Your good 2 mana, exactly. 2 mana 2/1 Last Breath draw card. Sure, he draws from your own deck, but you don't get the card until he dies. And additionally, he has only 1 health, right? 2 ways in which he's worse than our Bilgewater equivalent.
And the third way is that he loses, so he doesn't have that tempo gain that Black Market Merchant does of dropping the cost.
Yes, that's right. And the cost reduction, which I somehow forgot when I was just... Yeah. Right? It's just better on 3 axes, and yes, it has 2 downsides, but neither downside is as big as I guess Riot thought it would be.
Right.
So circling back, I think this means that the mechanic's actually a fine mechanic to an actively good mechanic, but the outcome is the balancing's just a bit off. I think they need to either increase the cost or weaken the stats, or look at that set of cards and see if they can weaken them slightly.
Another interesting thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm just gonna start combing through this Reddit post and just see if I can find some spicy hot takes that I want to make fun of, or spicy hot takes that are good.
Another interesting thing they can do with some of those cards that require Plunder is maybe make Plunder like a numeric thing, like Plunder 1, Plunder 2. Like you have to have done a certain amount of damage in a turn before the effect's available. So
that's a big change that requires a lot of testing, and also risks not being enough, right? Like if you change a bunch of cards to Plunder 2 and it turns out that Plunder 2 is still reliable, that's a problem.
I get you.
But on the other hand, if they balance that right, it could be great.
Right. Oh boy.
So here's one take. I love that Yoink is such a small instance of random, and the lore community is already in an uproar. This shows how healthy we all hope the game can be. Hearthstone has random into random, and people are just starting to get annoyed. I probably shouldn't call this person out. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying this is like a bad or good take, but I kind of want to break this down. Um, yeah, so to me, the concept that it's a small, yeah, I mean, it is more random than just drawing a card from your own deck, right? Because
Sure.
you would know it's in your deck. In this case, you don't necessarily know it's going to be in the opponent's deck going into it. But
Yeah.
again, I just and this is also me not knowing that much about Hearthstone, but I'm assuming like what is Hearthstone's RNG type stuff?
Oh god, it's things like I think the biggest like proponent of crazy Hearthstone randomness is Yogg, right? That's the one, Adam.
I mean, Yogg is long
Is
gone
Dog?
from the competitive scene, but
Yeah.
Hearthstone is
But-
very big on generating spells from outside the game, like with a significant amount of randomness to it.
Mhm.
And those that can be good or bad depending on how it's implemented. A lot of the benefits of randomness apply there, right? You have to react game to game, but when you have a large pool like that, there's a bit more variability to it, and the game can swing more heavily on what you generate.
I mean, I would argue that there's nothing inherently wrong with randomness, right? I mean, to me, the only issue you start running into is what's your player base want? I mean, it really just comes down to that, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm playing Hearthstone and I'm like, I don't know, Karen McMomerson, and I'm just like playing because I want to have fun and see fun stuff happen, I'm gonna love random. But if I'm like, Twitch McStreamer, I'm gonna definitely want to play like the more Runeterra based games so that like I can show off my skill and like get a more good idea of like a competitive game,
Yeah. That is
to me, there's something inherently wrong with it. I mean, yeah, it does start to get annoying, I guess, with like RNG.
Well,
I mean, the other thing is a lot of people dislike randomness without realizing it's not the problem. I mean, we were talking about the balance of these cards. I'd like to point out that no one has ever complained about what is the card that draws from your opponent's hand? 3 mana slow spell.
Oh, yeah.
Draws from your opponent's hand.
Yeah.
Right, you guys barely remember it exists because
exactly.
it's that
Great
bad,
point.
right? The card is slow. It's a slow spell. It's ineffective. No one plays it, and no one's ever complained about it, despite the fact that the potential swing there is much larger because your hand is not really randomized the way a deck is, right? Decks are just what have you drawn, what have you not drawn. Hands have a lot to do around what you've played and etc. So hands can be skewed towards good cards. And yet, because this card is costed poorly, no one complains, right? A lot of the times what people are complaining about is cards being good, and because they notice it's random, they decry the randomness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm honestly like kind of surprised and impressed right now by some of the comments in here because it's all like pretty reasonable stuff. Like, wow, this community is pretty reasonable. This guy's just calling out that it's 2 mana draw 2, vis-a-vis pilfered goods.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing one guy that says that they need to change that it's not very pirate like because pirates burn stuff, which is kind of weird. Pirates,
let's
in fact,
not get into the vague, weird flavor justifications for things. That's just no.
Yeah. Because also pirates did in fact pirate, so
pirates.
A little confused by that one.
So one last thing I would like to address is a suggestion that I've seen floated, and I'd like to talk about it because it could be a good idea, it could be a bad idea. I think it's worth discussing. A common suggestion is to make it instead of stealing cards off the top of your opponent's deck, copying cards off the top of your opponent's deck. And I'd like to ask, what do you guys think about that? What are your opinions?
So to me, it sounds like that again does not address the underlying issue. So obviously, I'd like to see that as well of like cost changes. But I mean, yeah, I guess to me, it seems like most people that complain about this are the ones that are like, "That's my card." So I mean, I'd be fine with it. I mean, to me, I don't mind people stealing cards from my deck in like a DCG. I mean, I guess in like Magic, when someone would pick up like half my deck and be like, "That's mine," now it's a little more visceral, but. Yeah, I mean, that seems fine if that's what people are complaining about. Again, I think it kind of takes away from the actual issue, though.
Yeah, but I mean, if it makes some amount of the player base happy, doesn't decrease the quality of the game, and doesn't take a bunch of code time to implement, why not, right?
You see, but I think it somewhat does take away from the quality of the game to some extent, because instead what you're doing is look at the top card of your opponent's deck, put a copy of it in your hand.
Ooh.
So you're also getting information.
That's actually extra information. That's a good point.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, your opponent's also getting that information right back, right? The moment they draw that card, they know it's what you have in hand.
Yeah.
But it's a bit different when it's like, oh, I know what they took of mine. And, you know, you know what's in there for them. I mean, the only thing that I think is bad about these is, in the sense of, like, actually taking the card, is when your opponent is on something really, really narrow, and you take the thing they need to do their really, really narrow thing.
Right.
And, like, I think that probably means that, like, you're playing something really specific. Like, that's not very common in Runeterra right now.
I mean,
It's
especially given that you can't take champions, right? You know, if your opponent's on Karma Ezreal, you can't take the Karma of the Ezreal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I think I like this change less now. Now that I thought about like the open information thing, I don't know. I don't. Some of my least favorite times are. Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Sometimes I don't like when like both people have like a lot of information in an inherently closed information game about like what each other is doing. Although I guess they could like start trying to next level each other.
yeah.
I agree with you there. It can make the game feel too deterministic. It's right. You've got a removal spell. I've got a removal spell. I guess we're gonna trade next.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of bland.
It's definitely
Whereas like
real.
when you steal someone's car and that person's thinking like, what did he steal of mine? Like it could be anything. It could be a boat, dude. Like,
It also makes like mirror issues. If you steal every time you steal a unit, you're gonna play it. They're gonna play it. It's gonna bounce off itself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, I think that actually leads to some really stale gameplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not.
That
the
gameplay
best.
is stale.
All right, so I think we're gonna say we don't like this change. That it's an interesting idea, but that fundamentally it does create bad gameplay. One last consideration, and this one I see floated mostly by Freljord players, stealing from the bottom instead of from the top.
I could see
Start
that.
from the bottom.
I could see that.
I mean, it changes nothing about the gameplay with regards to the card itself, and changes nothing in the standard scenarios. But
it is a
for
lot
specifically
less
the
good
like
against
deck buffing top card Freljord stuff, it's
Ah.
less of a counter.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
It does directly fuck that.
Sure.
Um,
that seems reasonable.
Wait, isn't there already a card that does something with the bottom of the deck?
That would be tossing, Stan.
Or just tossing? Okay, cool. So yeah, there's nothing that affects the bottom of the deck in a way that it gets countered by that. So,
Oh, tosses from the bottom. I forgot about that.
yeah, tosses from the bottom.
Yeah. Wow.
Tossed it from the bottom. Now you're here.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very reasonable change, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of trying to scroll through and see if there's any other takes I can find. I'm not seeing a lot. It's kind of just sort of that repeated ad nauseum.
Yeah, it seems
All
about
right, so we fleshed this out. We've hit it from all sides. That came out wrong.
Hell yeah, it did. All right, I guess now it's time for my meme corner, which has sort of I've sort of been constructing it today. I didn't know what I was going to be doing coming into it, but now I've kind of constructed it. So I started out by saying seasons of torture. Well, excuse me. Actually, I said seasons of
torture. Ha 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 ha.
And it got me thinking, you know, which champion would be the best at torture? Excuse me, advanced interrogation technique.
Oh.
And
See, those two things are very different, right?
yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Thresh is the best at torture because, you know, he's a sadistic torturing monster. But Garen is the best at enhanced interrogation techniques because he's doing it for Crown and Country.
There we go.
Makes sense.
Found it. What do you think? What do you think someone like Teemo would do for torture? What is his like? He's just so sweet and cuddly.
He'd tickle you.
He'd feed you mushrooms.
Yeah, he would probably he would probably tickle you to death.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys know that LSD was first developed by the U.S. military for interrogation
Ultra.
purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for MK Ultra. So
are you
Teemo
telling
has
me
perfected
Teemo-
that technique,
Are you
and
telling
those
me
mushrooms he
Teemo's a
feeds
narc?
you.
You telling me that Teemo's a
Kinda like
goddamn
the
narc?
list here. Let's see if
I'm
I
not
can
cool
get
with
that.
that.
What about Fizz?
No. Fizz couldn't torture somebody.
Okay.
The problem with Fizz is he's aquatic, right? So he tries to airboard you.
Yeah. I think Vlad could torture you really
I
well,
like
because he could, like, torture you, put you back together, torture you again. He
Yeah.
really likes hitting his people.
Yeah.
Now, if you're asking, of the cards that torture, you know, who should probably torture the most people, like Imperial Demolitionist is doing that pretty good. She's a regular old anime waifu. She can probably torture some people.
I do think actually we might be getting into like a cultural shock thing where because Vlad naturally is so into the whole like pulling apart rending and flesh and blood stuff because he's like a vampire or whatever. What if his again it's akin to what Adam said. His idea of torture is like we're just gonna sit down and have a bro moment together. We're just gonna watch a good movie.
Wow.
I'm gonna give you my
Yeah.
blood. What if his idea of torture is you get your blood donated or he donates his blood to you via like a Red Cross blood bank. You know?
Yeah.
You ever think of that?
That makes sense.
Anyone?
I can see that.
Bueller?
I can say honestly, I did not think of that.
Very cool. At least I have some fresh new ideas still.
What would you
I'm not out of them.
What would you say is the card with the most annoying voice line in the game? Because that's probably also the one who is physically best at torture in the real world.
That's a very
You
good
have to
point.
hear it every time it's played.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
Lux.
that's a very good point.
Huh?
It's just all Demacia all the time. It's Lux. She's happy-go-lucky. You leave someone in a room with Lux for 5 hours. She doesn't even know she's torturing them. She just talks to them and tells them about
Ooh.
her life and boys and all those other things that teenage girls talk about. And just
I will say
after 5 hours
I
of
will-
that, you'll give up every secret ever. And
I will
every
definitely
dream girl.
say that the person who's best at torture is the one that doesn't even know that they're doing it. Because I feel like at a certain
true.
point, your like human instinct kicks in, and you're like, I can't do it anymore. But yeah, when someone doesn't know it's ooh yeah, that's brutal.
They can go so much further. Oh no.
And also,
Yeah.
I wanted to point out that while all of us are trying to take away Plunder from, or at least pieces of Plunder from Runeterra, those in the Call of Duty Warzone community are dying to get it back. Now, if you guys don't know, Plunder, including myself, Plunder in Call of Duty is, let's see what it is. It is a game mode in which when you kill people, they drop cash,
Oh, nice.
and you need to excavate or exfiltrate that cash from the war zone. And people on Reddit are going crazy for this game mode. In fact, one person here has vowed to quit COD until they bring back Plunder, sort of maybe going on a COD strike.
Oh, man. Is it the same guy who quit NASCAR? Do we know who this guy
Probably.
is?
This guy just quits things.
Yeah.
I don't
So-
know why COD doesn't have Plunder on, but I'm kind of like, I feel like we're walking into a bit of a minefield here, Dan. So I'd be cautious.
Well, I think it's important for us to remember that, you don't know what you got till it's gone, as the great Counting Crows once said. Beat Vanessa Carlson, and the second they take away a mechanic, you might just realize that was exactly the mechanic that we needed.
Yeah.
You mean like 2-cost Black Spear?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
the
I mean,
mechanic, for sure.
I know everyone listening right now is they're all whining about black market merchant, pilfered goods, but really, if we had 2-cost Black Spear, it would all be okay now.
Yeah, the world would be a better place.
That's gonna do it for me in my meme corner. Unless you guys have anything else,
I got nothing.
I think we
No,
covered
sorry,
it.
Bob.
So
I think
for
we
Run
did
the
it.
Terra, I have been Grandmaster Pilfered Goods Dan.
I've been Adam Edelman Munoz, also known as Black Spirit 2.
I'm Stan Jaraszewski.
What have you been, Stan?
And I'm here to tell you that Plunder's balanced as fuck. Yeah.
All right, and we'll still be those people next time, and we'll see you then.
Take care.
Bye-bye.